Mary was scrolling through her phone one evening when she received a message from an unknown number. "Hey beautiful, I saw your profile and I couldn't resist saying hello." She hesitated for a moment before replying. "Who is this?" "My name is Mike. I came across your profile on Facebook. You look amazing." Mary smiled. Compliments were nothing new to her, but something about Mike's word made her curious. His profile picture showed a tall, dark-skinned man with a confident smile. They started chatting, and over the next few weeks, they became close. Mike was charming, funny, and always knew the right word to say. One night, he sent her a message. "Mary, I really want to see you. I feel like we have a connection. Let me send you transport money so you can come visit me this weekend." Mary hesitated. She had never met Mike in person before, but he had been nothing but kind to her. She even sent her money a few times when she needed help. He didn't seem like a bad person. "Are you sure? I don't want to stress you." "You're not stressing me, my dear. I will be happy to see you." The next morning, Mike sent her 20,000 naira for transport and extra cash for anything she needed. Mary felt excited. She told her best friend, Joy, about the trip. "Are you sure about this?" Joy asked, frowning. Joy. What is there? Mike has been nice to me. He even sent me money," Mary replied. Joy shook her head. "Just be careful. You don't know him well." Mary laughed. "You worry too much. I will call you when I get there." That Friday, Mary picked a small bag and boarded a bus to meet Mike. She sent him a message when she arrived in the city, and he replied instantly. "I'm on my way to pick you up. Can't wait to see you." Mary smiled as she waited by the roadside, unaware she was walking into a deadly trap. Mary stood there by the roadside, her small travel bag in her hand. The evening breeze was cold and the streets were busy with people rushing home from work. She glanced at her phone. Mike had sent her a message. "I'm almost there. Just wait for me." Her heart raced with excitement. She had been talking to Mike for weeks and now she was finally going to meet him. She checked her reflection on her phone screen and smiled. A red car pulled up beside her. The tinted window rolled down and a man in a white polo shirt smiled at her. "Mary?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "Hop in," he said. Mary hesitated for a second. The man looked like Mike's picture, but something felt off. His eyes were cold. "See!" She shook off the feeling and got into the car. As they drove, she noticed they were moving away from the city. "Where are we going?" she asked. "My house. It's a bit outside town, but don't worry, you will love it," Mike replied with a smile. Mary forced a smile and looked at the window. The road became very quiet. Fewer houses, more trees. Her heart started beating. She pulled out her phone and texted Joy. "Babe, I don't know. Something feels off." Joy replied immediately. "Where are you?" Before Mary could respond, Mike snatched the phone from her hand. "You won't be needing that," he said coldly. Fear gripped Mary. "Mike, stop the car. I want to go back," she said in fear. But Mike didn't stop. Instead, he increased the speed. Mary's hands trembled as she reached for the door handle. But before she could open it, Mike grabbed her wrist. "Relax, Mary," he said, his voice calm but threatening. "You're not going anywhere." Mary's stomach twisted in fear. She had made a terrible mistake. She was trapped. Joy paced around her small room, her heart pounding. Mary's last message had scared her. "Babe, I don't know. Something feels off." She had replied instantly, asking for Mary's location. but there was no response. She dialed Mary's number, but it rang twice and then went dead. Something was wrong. Joy grabbed her keys and rushed outside. She needed to find someone to help her. But who? She didn't even know exactly where Mary had gone. All she knew was that she had traveled to meet a guy named Mike. Joy's mind raced. Maybe Mary's phone died. Maybe she was fine. But deep down, she knew something was terribly wrong. Mary was breathing heavily as she sat in the dark room. She had screamed, kicked, and begged, but Mike didn't care. She looked around the small room. There was no window, just a single dim light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Her phone was gone. Mike had taken it. Tears rolled down her face. This wasn't the man she had been talking to online. He had lied, and now she was trapped with him. The door creaked open and Mike stepped inside. His smile was gone. His eyes were filled with something dark and terrifying. "You should have listened to your friend," he said, stepping closer. Mary's body trembled. She knew she wouldn't be leaving this place alive. Joy didn't sleep at night. She kept calling Mary's phone, but it was switched off. Her heart was heavy with worry. Something told her that Mary was in danger. By morning, she made a decision. She had to report Mary missing. She went to the police station, but the officers didn't take her seriously at first. "She just traveled yesterday," one of the officers said, yawning. "Maybe her phone died." "No!" Joy insisted. "She sent me a message before her phone went off. She was scared. She didn't feel safe." The officer sighed. "Did she tell you exactly where she was going?" Joy shook her head. "She only told me the guy's name, Mike." The officer looked at her with pity. "That's not much to go on." Joy clenched her fist. "So you are not going to do anything?" The officer hesitated, then took out a notebook. "Fine, give me all the details you have." Joy wrote down everything: Mary's full name, phone number, the little she knew about Mike. But deep down, she knew the police wouldn't act fast. If she wanted answers, she had to find it herself. Mike scrolled through Mary's phone. He looked at her last messages and saw Joy's name. He smiled. "People were already looking for you, Mary." But it was too late. He turned and looked at the lifeless body on the floor. Mary was gone. Joy sat on her bed, staring at her phone screen. It had been 2 days since Mary's last message, and there was still no sign of her. The police had promised to investigate, but she knew they weren't doing much. Joy decided to take matters into her hands. She reopened Mary's last messages looking for clues. Then she remembered something. Mary had once sent her a screenshot of Mike's Facebook account. Joy quickly searched for it and found his account. The profile picture showed a man smiling in a red polo shirt, but something about it is fake. She clicked on his friends list and started sending messages to random people. "Hey, do you know Mike personally?" Most ignored her, but one person replied, "That guy, be careful. Something is off about him." Joy's hands trembled as she typed, "What do you mean?" "Guests keep disappearing after meeting him. I don't know what he does to them, but no one ever hears from them again." Joy's blood ran cold. Mary was in serious danger, or worse, already dead. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away. She wasn't going to sit back and do nothing. If the police wouldn't find Mike, she would, and when she did, she would make him pay. Joy barely ate or slept. Her mind was focused on one thing: finding Mike. She continued digging through his Facebook profile, searching for any clue about his location. Then she noticed something strange. Most of his pictures were taken in front of the same building, a house with a red gate and a small tree beside it. Joy zoomed in. The street sign in the background was blurry, but she could make out part of the name. She quickly searched online and found a street with a similar name in a nearby town. Her heart pounded. Was this where Mary had gone? She didn't waste time. The next day, she traveled to the town and started asking around. She showed Mike's picture to shop owners and bike riders. One man's eye darkened when he saw the photo. That man, he said in a low voice, he is dangerous. Joy's breath caught. You know him? The man hesitated, then nodded. He brings different girls to his house, but they never come out. Joy's stomach twisted. Where is his house? She asked urgently. The man pointed down the street, end of the road, the red gate. Joy clenched her fists. She had found him, and now it was time to make him pay. Joy stood at the end of the street, staring at the red gate. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. Mike was inside. She didn't know what she would find, but one thing was certain: Mary wasn't coming back. Tears threatened to fall, but she blinked them away. This wasn't the time to cry. It was time for justice. She looked around and noticed a small alley beside the house. Quietly, she slipped in and found a narrow path leading to the backyard. The house was silent, too silent. Taking a deep breath, she moved closer to the back door. It was slightly open. She stepped inside. The air was heavy with strange smell. She covered her nose as she walked down a dark hallway. Her hands shook, but she kept going. Then she saw it. A small room. The door was open. Joy's blood ran cold. Inside, the floor was stained with dried blood. Chain hung from the walls, and in the corner, Mary's handbag. She trembled in fear. Her best friend had died here. Her body trembled with rage. Then she heard footsteps. Mike was home. Joy's breath hitched as the footsteps grew louder. She looked round, searching for a place to hide, but it was too late. A shadow appeared at the door. Mike. He froze when he saw her. His eyes darkened with confusion, then anger. What are you doing here? His voice was cold. Joy clenched her fists. Where is Mary? She demanded. Mike smiled. You already know the answer. Rage boiled inside Joy. She wanted to scream, to attack him, but she forced herself to calm down. She needed to be smart. She glanced at the door behind him. She couldn't fight him alone. She needed to escape and call for help. But Mike saw the look in her eyes. You are not leaving, he said, stepping closer. Joy's heart pounded. She took a step back, but Mike lunged at her. She ducked just in time, grabbing a wooden stool from the corner and smashing it against his arm. She sprinted out of the house, her feet barely touching the ground. She didn't stop until she reached the main road. Gasping for breath, a group of men stood nearby. Help me, she cried. He's a killer. The men turned, eyes widening as they saw the terror on her eyes. Then Mike appeared at the door, looking furious. But now, he wasn't just facing Joy. He was facing an angry crowd. And this time, he wouldn't escape. Mike froze at the doorway as the crowd turned towards him. His confidence disappeared. Catch him! Joy shouted, pointing at him. He's a murderer! The men didn't hesitate. They rushed towards Mike, grabbing him before he could escape. Leave me alone, Mike struggled, but he was outnumbered. Joy stepped forward, her eyes burning with rage. Where is Mary's body? She demanded. Mike didn't answer. One of the men punched him on his face. Talk or we will deal with you ourselves. Mike screamed in pain. He looked round, realizing there was no way out. She's gone, he finally muttered. Where? Joy pressed. Mike hesitated, then lowered his head. Buried behind the house. Joy's knees felt weak. The truth was finally out, but it didn't bring her comfort. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them off. She wasn't done yet. The police officers arrived minutes later and Mike was dragged away in handcuffs. The officers dug up the ground and soon they found what they were looking for, Mary's body. Joy broke down in tears, but as she stared at Mike, who was now trembling in fear, she made a promise. He would pay for what he did, no matter what. The courtroom was silent as Joy sat in the front row, her hands clenched into fists. Mike stood in the dock, wearing a prison uniform. He looked nothing like the confident man who had lured Mary to her death. Now, he was just a scared criminal waiting for his sentence. The judge cleared his throat. Michael Okafor, you are found guilty of murder, kidnapping, and other crimes. You are hereby sentenced to— Joy held her breath. Death by hanging. A heavy silence followed. Then murmurs filled the courtroom. Some people complained, while others nodded in approval. Mike's face turned pale. His legs shook. For the first time, he knew fear. The same fear he had made Mary feel before killing her. Joy didn't blink. She felt no pity, no regrets. He had destroyed lives. Now, he was facing the same fate. Outside the courthouse, reporters rushed to her, shoving microphones in her face. How do you feel about the judgment? One asked. Joy took a deep breath. I fought for justice, she said, and today, justice was served. She turned away, walking towards the streets, but deep down, she knew nothing could bring Mary back. Revenge was complete, but the pain would last forever.